our latest Insights interview series that we're running virtually during COVID while we're all working from home. And we're thrilled to have Tim, the CEO of Lord Somers Camp and Powerhouse, with us today. And I've been fortunate enough to know Tim for the last year or so after meeting at an event and then being involved in a local I won't say networking group, but a local group of people who've come together working in a similar field, meet every month. And it's been really great as part of that to hear some of the things that the organisation has done to adapt to COVID. And for so many not-for-profits, it is a time where their services have either had to cease. Some not-for-profits, their services have ramped up. Others, their services have had to cease due to the very nature of their in-person services and programs. So first of all, welcome Tim, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks Georgie, good on you. Thanks for having me.
Do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about the organisation, what sort of programs and activities you run pre-COVID, and sort of, I guess, the history of Lord Somers?
Love to. So Lord Somers Camp and Powerhouse, we've been going a while now. We clicked over 90 years at the start of last year. It was really established to wipe out blind prejudice within the community. So Lord Somers was the Governor of Victoria back in the day, and he identified a real need to follow along with that vision. And he essentially brought 50 boys from industry, so those that had dropped out from school, in the 15, 16, 17-year-old age bracket, and 50 boys from school, so predominantly private school, and brought two very different communities together. And through a range of different games and challenges across a week-long camp, it resulted in 100 young men being more community-focused young individuals. The program continues to this day in the form of Big Camp. We do that with not just boys now, but we've successfully introduced Lady Somers Camp, which has been going for over 35 years now. And the programs are no more, probably arguably more important they are today than they ever have been. We continue on that path.
Yeah. So pre-COVID, what would have you been doing now? What would have 2020, March, April, May looked like for you?
Well, we're just through Easter, so we would have finished our Easter camp with about 50 different families down at camp from varying different backgrounds, just having a good time, sharing fellowship and having a lot of fun. We've done that on a very different level this time around. We would have also gone through right in the middle of a first wave of community camps. So after Big Camp or Lord Somers and Lady Somers Camp, there's a range of different activities that our volunteers participate through, a range of different community camps, from a camp focused around our partnership with very special kids. So we see kids in terminal ill life situations with their families come down, and our volunteers run a great engaged activity down at camp. We would have had a range of different theatre productions that run at Powerhouse in Albert Park, and the list is ultimately endless. We do a program or a camp or activity of some form or description basically every week of the year, which is really changed.
Yeah. So obviously, all your activities and services are in person, and you've had to, adapt those. Can you remember the point where you realised, okay, we're going to really need to sit down, this is going to affect us, and how you went about that?
Yeah, well, we had, I remember, we sat around the board table with the board, and we understood that things were changing quite rapidly, and we run a social enterprise that funds the majority of our camps and programs, which sees us have a fee-for-service camp. So we see predominantly school groups come down and we run their programs for them, and they were calling us, trying to figure out how they adjust with this impending lockdown, which at that point wasn't quite a confirmed situation, but it was starting to become really real, really quickly. And we, as a board, support a decision. It was that we later chose to suspend all programs and activities right through for a good 3 months ahead. And at that time, we thought that was at that time it was somewhat challenged as well, thinking, oh, that's a long time to be closed. But in actual fact, it looks like it potentially will extend beyond that.
And I know when we were speaking a couple of weeks ago, and as you say, this moves so fast. So a couple of weeks ago feels like a couple of years ago. I was so impressed with how much you had adapted your programs to run online, and I'll get you to talk about them in a minute. Not only how you'd adapted them, the speed that you'd done them, and you're, I think, many steps ahead of a lot of other not-for-profits who are perhaps sort of working through this at the moment, but also the variety. So do you want to tell us from what you would have been running, what you have brought online and how you've gone about that?
Well, we're really fortunate that we've got a really energetic and passionate group of volunteers and members alike within our organisation, and the community really is focused at pulling together at times of need. It's one of our values is to do service to others without seeking recognition. So this is a real time where our members stand up, and they've done they're a creative bunch as well. So we've done a range of different adjustments, if you like, at pulling our live-in programs into an online sense, and a range of those programs are member focused, but we also have a range of programs that are focused around continuing to engage in our participants, and the participants are those that are most affected by such a change in their lifestyle, and often further disadvantaged than standard, and then just really celebrating our connections across the community in large droves. So one of the programs that we have adjusted is it's a very simple approach. We're doing a hump day hangout. So really just an opportunity to get down to a virtual canteen that we have at camp and connect. And we're doing a range of different things every Wednesday, from light topics from a dog's better than cats to what's your favourite food, right through to more deeper and meaningful points of connection, from Indigenous reconciliation through to working with people with disabilities, and a range of different other topics as well, which we're really excited to kick off. We're kicking that off this week actually, and that's a virtual Zoom hangout in short. We're also doing some online performances through our Powerhouse Thespian Guild, or PTG as in short, to essentially have a live presentation of a panto performance where members can go along and they can watch the performance online, and we're going to be selling VIP tickets to that as well, which comes with unmuted access. So people can heckle and engage from the comfort of their own lounge room and have a real point of connection with that as well. And some programs that we've done recently include Diversity Disco. So camp diversity is for young, intellectually disabled young people. And our group of volunteers got together and simply put on a disco online, where we had a screen full up of participants in little squares dancing to a virtual DJ, again in the comfort of their own lounge room. So we've done a range of different programs and activities. We're really excited to continue arrange more, and the committees and the volunteers are actively participating in those now as well.
I think that's fantastic, and my mind was just buzzing all over the place because there's so many things I want to pick up on there. The first one is how you've not brought your volunteers in, but I'll go back a step. You haven't just looked at it as, well, we can't run our camps, so we're on hiatus. The way you've looked at adapting those to bring them online, I think is fantastic. But the way you've kept your volunteers involved, because I know for a lot of organisations, they're struggling with, what the role that the volunteers may have previously played. We can't do those roles. But those volunteers are still integral, and you can't just leave them out and sort of expect to come back in a few months and say, right, we're running the camps, we're ready for you. Too much has passed. So I love how you've really kept that volunteer and member theme and engagement and I guess the involvement that they have in there, because that's just going to, come back twofold in benefit for both the volunteers and the organisation.
Yeah, I think it's taken some quick adjustment. I know it's at part we're mourning the loss of camp and the loss of physical activity and that opportunity to engage face to face with people. But couldn't be more impressed with the way our volunteers and members have really risen to that challenge to find different ways that we can engage in it. We're calling our program versions Program Light because it very much is. It's not a full catalogue of the standard programs, but at the same time, I think the bits that we've been able to pick out have been integral to really holding communities together and having a real sense of purpose, a sense of belonging, and ultimately and equally a sense of fun as well, which is sometimes forgotten about the basics.
Absolutely, and you're so right. And I was reading an article yesterday about you don't always have to talk about the crisis. We need to acknowledge it, and obviously, we're living completely changed lives because of it. But not every conversation should be about it. The other thing I really love is the way you're offering different types of content, so people can get involved in different ways. It's not just bringing everything into a webinar or everything into an online this or that, but you've actually got a whole range. And I think the mistake that people often make is they think to take something online, they have to have this massive production values or they need to have this grand setup. But it's about that authenticity and that connection. And it's really about that connection at this time more than ever. So to just have a simple canteen hangout on Zoom can mean so much to people.
Yeah, and I think we're fastly learning at engaging in big groups on Zoom. I think the first week it was often 50 people staring at each other, but we are really quickly refining the process there, having proper engagement. We've got a range of world experts within our organisation now on Zoom. At having breakout rooms and some clear agendas and those type of things, but they'll continue to improve, and I'd like to think that there is room for these to continue even post this cloud lifting.
Exactly, and I think that's what so many people will find out of this. It is forcing us to think differently. It doesn't mean we don't pick up any of the great stuff we were doing before, but it's giving us, in a way, it's not a luxury of time that we've wanted, but it is giving us a luxury of time around getting to sit down and actually look at the programs and the campaigns or the events that we were running and looking, okay, this is a chance to see how we can improve or, make tweaks that we've been wanting to perhaps, but never had the time to sit down and look at it. And we talked about connection, and now more than ever, connection is so important. And particularly for organisations like yourself and organisations who are working with people who are starting at a disadvantage, to start with, and then something like this is going to create even more of a void around connection. So how you can still deliver those services in different ways that will engage them.
Yeah, agreed. It's a very unique time, but I think it will be equally exciting what overlaps within our new programs into the future.
Exactly, and I love, and it's the first time I've heard this, but I'll be telling people about it. I think it's fantastic. Is the VIP access to be able to turn your microphone on. I think that's fantastic because not only is it engaging, but you've given a layer of value, to an extra ticket that I think people are struggling with. How do we charge for online events? How do we give the distinction between what kind of access or value they get? And I think not only is that a clear one, but it's such a fun thing. Because who wouldn't want to have access to that? But who wouldn't want to hear other people? You know, you might be too shy, so you don't need to buy it, but others will love it, and you'll love it as the non-VIP, but it might inspire you at the next one to pay more and be involved. So I think that's a fantastic solution.
I can't wait for that.
Yeah.
To be honest, we're going to be keeping it at a set number. But equally, you know, having a little bit of creativity and passion for that at you know, presenting an auction for that VIP ticket. So you know, we're excited. We're also doing a range of step along stories or choose your own adventure stories, where again a muted access group can work together about how they're going to see the performance unfold. It might be, you know, it might go, you know, one way or the other, but equally there's that real sense of engagement there as well.
Yep, no, I think that's fantastic. How did you go about, you know, choosing what you were going to take online? And I've got to say, I love the fact that you're calling it the Light program, because it's not replacing your programs. It's and I think a lot of organisations are going to have difficulty when we start to transition back to being able to run in-person programs, because they've almost rebranded themselves and attached themselves to COVID. But this is a situation we're going through, but it doesn't mean we're always going to be in this. I think there's a lot of organisations that are running into that risk that they're completely attaching to COVID, and when we transition back to you know, normal society, I think they're going to have difficulty going back to their programs. So I love the fact that you haven't tried to say this is replacing, this is just a light version, but it got the integrity of your programs, and it'll allow you to transition, you know, back into those camps and your in-person things. So well done on that. But how did you go around that process of going, okay, we can't do the camp, so we'll do this instead, or we can't do this, so we'll do this? Was it, you know, structured? Did it just sort of organically happen?
Yeah, so we invited all of our program and community camp leaders together and literally just did a talk it out workshop in short. So, you know, I think there was always a vision to try to bring aspects online, and I think it really did start with the Hump Day Hangouts. So having just literally one day a week where we get together and connect, and it just slowly evolved from there in the sense of, okay, well, you know, what else can we do? And it's quickly evolving and developing, and you know, we haven't set out, you know, with a specific goal to say, you know, we must do, you know, this for us to be, you know, giving ourselves a pat on the back, so to speak. But I think the organic nature that it's grown is you know, fitting for our organisation, that we are identifying opportunities, working and supporting our volunteers and supporting our members with those thoughts and ideas, and making sure that they can deliver the best opportunity they can. You know, we're doing equally some pre-recorded activity as well. So more specifically targeted with our participants who are, you know, younger age groups, at getting them fit, active, and engaged through this time. We're also doing similar things through our social enterprise arm, and engaging with schools, and you know, the opportunity for the schools to send that out to do a fun, we're calling it a camp in rather than camp out. So working, you know, with a pre-recorded instructional video from our camp activities manager, and he'll do a warm-up every week that kids and schools can engage in, and so I think it's you know, it's something that's growing organically, and you know, when we have a great idea, we'll just try and support it best way we can for our members.
And I think that's such a wise way to do it, because there is a tendency that people overplan and they're over-analysing, and they're taking too much time, and this thing moves so quickly, this situation that we're in, that people's emotions are changing. So, you know, we went through those sort of few weeks in March where it seemed like every day there was another change to our restrictions or to the information coming out. We've now sort of settled's not a great word, but we're in this next phase of, okay, we're in this, and then we're going to, you know, we'll go through another phase of, you know, where we've been in it for a few months and we start to get restless. So we're going to go through phases. So we need to act pretty quickly. And I love the fact that you've committed to, we're just going to try it. And, you know, the programs that people are doing, and obviously everyone's moved a lot of stuff online. It doesn't have to be perfect straight away, but it's about testing it and giving your audience those different options that they can engage in different ways, depending on what suits them. And the fact that you brought your volunteers into that process right from the planning stage naturally builds huge engagement with them. They feel ownership over it. And then that obviously gets reflected in how they run and how they engage with, you know, the people coming into the program. So I think it's
indeed. Yeah, indeed.
And how have your participants and the kids reacted to the new programs, and how did you sort of position the rollout of them in your messaging?
Well, we haven't had too much participant engagement as yet. It is growing. So some of our participants are school-age students, so they're slowly being engaged with as now term starts again. So we're sending out a first wave of communication to our school clients for the social enterprise, for the active warm-up and challenge idea. We're working with our partner organisations such as Very Special Kids and Mirabel at doing a range of different activities for their participants and their members as well. But equally, you know, some of our participants are equally just those within our organisation. So last week we did a Zoom meeting with our older brigade. So we're on Zoom with about 40 80-year-olds, which was quite a feat, and but really well run and really well engaged with. Yeah. So, you know, I think we are all about celebrating diversity across all the different ranges of diversity, whether that's race or culture or sex or religion or age. And you know, through this time, it's not just about keeping one group active or engaged, but collectively coming together and celebrating what is such a diverse, rich culture through Australia, and that was a remarkable success.
I love that. I love that you know, you haven't just focused on one group of stakeholders, but it is about everyone. And Alison McDowell from Roadmap Strategy, who's a mutual friend of both of us, is doing a lot of great stuff of highlighting brands that, as she calls it, don't go dark during this time, because a lot of organisations and brands, for whatever reason, and it might be budget or it might be assumptions or sensitivity or capability, are sort of just pausing and then expecting to pick up when they get out the other side, but it's too late. You know, people have made new relationships. I sat in on a webinar where they said, if you aren't in market, people will still donate. They just won't donate to you. So at a time when we're, you know, the only access we've got to the outside world, apart from our essential shopping and exercise, is looking at our laptops or watching TV or looking online. The organisations that are stepping into that void and being with us all the way and building that engagement and not leaving us and expecting that they're going to come back next year and we'll be there. You know, they're the ones we're going to remember, the ones that stuck with us during this. So I think everything that your organisation's doing is fantastic, and I know it will provide inspiration to not only other not-for-profits, but to community clubs on, you know, simple things they could do that doesn't necessarily need to be labour intensive, but just small little things they can do to keep their members engaged and show their members we're here for the long haul, we're here for the good times and the bad times.
And you know, I think we're fortunate that we've we've been set with some really strong governance and you know, of past management over the last couple of decades even, to allow us to have the opportunity to ride through this. And I think it's fitting that we should be doing as much as we possibly can to support the community through such a change in lifestyle and circumstance, but equally help support other charities and organisations through this that are doing an immense amount of work and support to communities that need them more than ever.
Yeah.
We're doing an amazing event that we're working through very quickly on a in-short a step challenge. But one day we're supporting approximately 7 charities, and we're going to step 50 million steps to circumnavigate the world collectively together. Have a little bit of banter and competition between all the charities to who can step the furthest with their participants and volunteers, but ultimately collectively working together to support communities that support some of the most disadvantaged individuals throughout Victoria.
And I love that concept on so many levels, because we can't run fun runs, we can't do sort of old school fundraising, but people are stuck at home and still need to exercise. And I love that concept, but equally I love the collaboration between other not-for-profits, charities, profit for purpose, whatever the term we use, because, and I'm seeing it a lot, and I think that's the positive people are talking about that's coming out of this, is that people are collaborating a lot more, and I'm seeing it with yourselves and other charities, and I'm seeing it with community clubs and people who, organisations they may have seen as a competitor, a competitor to fundraise against, or a community club, we're competing for the local family's membership. But they realise if we actually work together, we're not taking each other's, fundraising dollars, we're actually strengthening.
That's right.
So there's some fantastic collaboration coming out of it. And once again, I applaud you for that, because I think it's really showing the way when some not-for-profits are a little lost and perhaps a bit sort of deer in headlights, which is natural because we've all been like that. But I think what I'm hearing is that Lord Somers was able to be quite nimble, and that obviously comes down to that leadership you talked about, and I'm sure you, Tim, leading them, but that nimbleness to be able to quickly pivot, which is the buzzword at the moment, but quickly be able to adapt, bring people on board, and then obviously look at those different collaborations.
Indeed.
So have you, finally, because we'll wrap up soon, but thought how you're going to then start to transition out of these online light programs to when we do get a sense of when we can socialise again, knowing that we may do that in stages?
Yeah, I think for us, we're looking at slowly, getting back up on our regular feet. There's plenty of engagement and work to do in the current position, but we're working with our social enterprise clients and schools and groups at workshopping a staged approach to get back into camp, so we can help support our community programs through our social enterprise. So that's our core focus, and working quite closely with all the groups there, at being as flexible as we possibly can in terms of dates and whatnot. And then it's equally with our community program partners, from those that have intellectual disability, through Atlas, through refugee or asylum young people, or the whole range of different participants that we work with, at trying to get back into some normality later this year, and it'll probably come at a reduced number, but once we get a good sense on what restrictions will be moving into the future, we'll be able to plan a bit more. So we're not again fixated on a particular agenda or specific goal. our ultimate goal is to get back to where we once were and have an abundance of people down at camp and through our powerhouse building, engaging in activities and having that true sense of belonging, community back again. But until then, we'll do that on a virtual sense, and it's only building so much. So I'd like to think that in a year's time, we've got some form of an overlap program together with our virtual series, but equally back where we should be and together again.
Fantastic. And, you know, the work you're doing through your social enterprise and with the schools will only strengthen the relationship you've got with those schools, you know, going forward. And there's a lot of research coming out of cocooning periods and recessions that the organisations that do invest in marketing and, you know, those engagement efforts and invest not necessarily just money-wise, but time-wise, they're the ones that not only come out of, you know, that survive these, but they actually bounce out and they're stronger than ever on the other side because of all that activity they did during this time.
Yeah, indeed, and I think communities and their volunteers and everyone will be craving that opportunity to get out again. So we're looking forward to really springboarding off our program light and getting back into, you know, program as standard.
Well, thank you so much, Tim, for joining us. It's been fascinating to hear about how you've adapted the program, how you're creating different content options for people to take up and engage with, but also how you've brought your volunteers and your members into that decision process and that creative process, I guess, as well, which is really creating fantastic engagement. So thank you so much for sharing your insights with us and for your time today.
No worries. I had a lot of fun and looking forward to catching up for a physical coffee.
Exactly, I know, and like you, I can't wait for that day where we can actually go out and, you know, go to our first event. Thank you again. It's been really great chatting, and I'll see you at our next First Friday breakfast.
Thanks, Georgie.
Thanks, Tim. Bye.
Bye.